what's the future? You know, where do we go? I mean, you talk a little bit about Storm and Spark, Yarn, obviously, but where do you see Hadoop, you know, maybe 5 years from now even?
Well, there's kind of two, I mean, I'm spending a lot of time right now thinking about the future of Hadoop, and there's kind of two mega trends that I'm really sort of noodling on. There's a whole list of features I could give you, but, you know, that's probably another talk. One mega trend is just how are cloud and Hadoop going to converge?
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's a 20-minute segment right there.
Yeah.
But I think that's really interesting. I mean, if you look at it, Amazon and Google, right, are two mature, you know, proprietary systems that kind of show the two ways it could go. Right? Amazon is a cloud first, and people are having a lot of success running Hadoop on it. Google built an HPC infrastructure with a real focus on supporting things like MapReduce, and that had a HDFS-like storage infrastructure first, and now they do cloud-like things on top of it. Right? They run all their services in effectively a Hadoop-like system, right? Or at least an HPC scheduler-like system. So, you know, how are these open source ecosystems going to converge OpenStack, Hadoop, and all of the various projects in there? And I think that's really wide open, right? I mean, right now, neither project does what the other set of projects need, but IT managers don't want both. Yeah. Right? They want one common place to store all the data, and one common way to compute all the data, and one common way to allocate resources to projects. Right. So
they want to plug in the wall where they just put in, this is my storage and compute, and it's a utility.
Exactly. So they think that thing is going to be called OpenStack. Okay. But Hadoop is actually getting deployed in a lot more places at a lot more scale
than
OpenStack. And so how's that story going to end? Right. I have no idea. Yeah. So, but there's a lot of speculation you can do there. The other real mega trend is, I think, when we started Hortonworks, we talked about how important it was that the community not fragment, that there'd be one distribution of Hadoop. Yeah. Right. And, you know, that's a noble goal. But this, you know, someone was following me around at a conference the other day saying, admit it, the Hadoop community is fragmented, the Hadoop community is fragmented. And, you know, we kind of got in this long argument. And ultimately I said, well, so what? Yeah. Right? I mean, I think, yes, in some ways the Hadoop community, we can argue about how much it's this way and how long it's going to last, but I think the Hadoop community is kind of going into a Unix decade. Yeah. Right? So if you look at the Unix ecosystem, you know, the Unix APIs came out pretty early. You know, there was the AT&T Unix version. And then, you know, and then there was the Berkeley Unix version, and then there was every vendor's Unix version. Yeah. And one could argue that this was a terrible thing, that Unix evolved much more slowly than it might have if there'd been one. Right. And that, you know, because evolution. Yeah, you could argue that too. And that everybody was slowed down because as a vendor, if you wanted to write an application for Unix, you had to write it for every one. You could look at it that way, and you can look at the SQL ecosystem and say the same thing. Wouldn't it be terrific if all the SQLs were the same? Because then all the people that write SQL apps would have less work to do. Or you could turn around and say, well, wait a second. Look at those huge ecosystems, right? If you look at the Unix ecosystem, you know, Unix went from an unknown thing to the
multi-billion market, and, you know, a lot of technology innovation in the different areas.
And the default sort of ecosystem on which, you know, systems infrastructure was built during that Unix decade. Right. So I think Hadoop's going to see the same thing. You know, I don't know. You know, I'm of course a big fan of Apache Hadoop and hope that everybody does continue to base all of their work on that. Yeah. But whether or not they do, the APIs of Hadoop are being supported by more and more vendors and more products and more distros, be they pure or not pure, all the time. And as a result, I think what's really interesting over the next few years is, what are people going to do with Hadoop? Right. Right. What is that, you know, that ecosystem that's forming above Hadoop? And, you know, if that does really well, that just drives more of all the Hadoops, and then that creates, you know, more and more opportunity. Great. So yeah, that's very exciting to watch and see.